Good standing room only.
Hey. Well, this is my problem.
Like, everybody's blurry.
The worst part of you guys is you're absolutely right. It's just like.
Switching places. At least for the main process.
Yeah. Yeah. That is not good.
Yeah.
Should shot.
Some like thing that I connected and like. You. It's just.
Hmm. Always need to go down south of the Waffle House.
What else is so good?
It is, I've been over, try it, like, they're everywhere down there.
Yeah.
Like every corner, it's like a Dunkin' Donuts somewhere.
Yeah.
Waffle House?
Yes.
Yeah, I've never done it either.
I wanna go, I wanna do it,
So good.
yeah.
Later now.
Oh, my goodness. Goodness, yeah. Goodness. Hey, how are you? Good.
Do you think we go down to Tampa on the regular? Or
This is my second year gone.
okay,
Yeah.
have you been to the zoo?
We, what did we do last year? We did. No, we did Busch Gardens last year.
How was that?
Oh, it was fun.
Was it?
Yeah. We,
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, we go Christmas Eve.
Is it quiet there?
In the morning, yes.
Yeah.
As we were leaving, towards the end of the day, it was just getting.
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually heading around to Bradenton next Wednesday through the following Monday, which is right outside Tampa for a soccer tournament.
Okay.
For my son, but we were looking, we have a couple days on either side, we're looking for stuff to do, and we were thinking the zoo, but.
We didn't do the zoo, we did an aquarium. We did manatee, there's like a manatee, manatee viewing.
I forgot, I was
gonna bring my sanctuary.
Okay.
Which was really cool.
Yeah.
And they have the
Oh.
stingray pool where you can,
Yeah.
you know,
The plants.
touch the stingrays and.
Okay.
What were you gonna do?
I'll have to look that up, so yeah, I think that would be pretty neat, man.
But I had an uncle that always had it. These,
Yeah.
they, I learned, because I finally bought them, they only grow from the tip.
Mhm.
So when something bad happens here, you gotta cut them off with your little scalpel way down low, and then they'll put up babies from the side. However, I don't know whose baby it is, but
It's
old.
mine.
It must be really old.
It's mine. It's, yeah.
And I thought I'd bring it a new pot, but I thought I would give it up like.
Can you believe it's got
30
roots?
Yeah, it's ready to be planted.
I know.
Oh, that's very cool.
And look at, so look at how healthy these are in this.
Yeah.
Baby needs a new home. So I had it in my black spot. I gotta do it before the next meeting instead of as I'm going on Zoom, remembering I want to do it.
Yeah, it needs
Need to be
redone. Yeah, it does need a
Manatee
makeover.
sanctuary, like, I mean, there must have been 500 at least. Manatees just in the bay, you know.
Yeah.
And they have these long docks that go out to, like almost to the middle.
That's,
And you just watch them
in
and
the
just,
midst of them.
it was really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The sponge dock. The top shit. All the birds and stuff.
We good?
Yeah. Nice.
I don't think we have a quorum.
Oh my God, we might have.
No, not yet.
No.
So it was, good. It smells like snow, like a snow cap. Chocolate, and it looked like a candy cane. And then they started, oh, you remind me of the run is all white. Oh, it is Butch,
It's
so good.
you have me.
Or you?
Funny.
Absolutely.
Butch, were you wearing glasses last time?
I always put glasses.
Oh, it's because they're there. Okay.
Right, so like, how is this dark? This is cool.
Superman with a full too. Yeah, no, let's switch it over.
All right, great. Do I need to call this to order?
We don't have a quorum, so we're just
Perfect.
having a discussion.
Discussion amongst those members present.
But we can certainly introduce, everybody can introduce themselves and go around the room and that kind of friendly, sort of neighborly thing to do.
Okay. You want to start?
Cam, are you recording? I didn't even see this.
Yeah.
Someone else is I think maybe Sylvia hit record.
Started when I started the Zoom.
Oh, all right, so Adam's got that going.
Thank you.
I don't even see the mouse to this
I
thing.
have it over here.
Oh.
If you want
Was it ever, are you presenting first or?
No, I'm not. I was just letting people in.
Oh. All right. Yeah, so why don't we go around the room? Tracy, why don't you start us? Sure. Tracy Whitehead for MTA Park.
Ben Herbert, Region 8 Mobility Manager.
Bruce Thomas, Town of Brookside.
Lynn Coulthard, Francistown. Maggie Baldwin, City of Manchester.
Butch Laker, City of Manchester Planning.
Adam Lasney, staff with the commission.
Nate Miller, staff with the commission.
Zach Swick, staff of the commission.
Anthony Summers, staff with the commission.
David Tilton with the commission.
James Bayo with the commission.
Van Huber with the commission.
And because we don't have enough commission people here, I'm here as well, Sylvia Von Aulock. Yeah. All right, let's go to our virtual friends, Lucy.
Good morning, everyone. Lucy St. John, New Hampshire DOT.
Great. Caroline.
Good morning. Caroline Wilson, Dairy Planning Department.
All right. Caroline, are you going to be kind of the dairy representative for a while?
Not sure. Elizabeth couldn't make the last one or this one, but I think we'll see her again, and I'm just trying to learn what I can.
Okay, and we certainly welcome you to come down to Manchester and be with us. So A, we could help get a quorum, and two, we have really good bagels.
Okay, thank you.
Just for future. All right, Lee.
All right.
Hi, good morning, Lee Levine, Federal Highway Administration. Enjoy those bagels.
We will.
Weren't purchased with federal dollars. Not purchased bagels.
Yeah. Okay, people are moving. Andrew.
Good morning, Andrew Haddock, Chester Planner.
Thanks, Andrew. And we have Jack.
Good morning, Jack Wade, New Hampshire, yes.
Excellent. And how about Vincent?
Morning, everyone. Vincent Pagano, Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Wonderful. And Mac.
Mac, DES.
You did speak up, she was just very quiet.
Yeah, I just heard Mac DES. And do you pronounce your last name Bevere?
It is Bevere, yes.
Oh, that's a miracle. I got that. Okay. And how about Kristen?
Hi, Kristen Clark, City of Manchester, DPW.
Thanks, Kristen. And then we have Cam.
Morning, everyone. Cam Perlman,
All
Regional
right.
Southern Regional Planning.
All right, great. Did I miss anyone? No. Okay.
Okay. I guess we have minutes. Oh,
Okay, we'll have to skip the
yes. So new business, the first item on the agenda is the overview of proposed 2025 regional safety performance targets. Presenting is David Tilden and Zachary Swick.
Bear with me 1 second, please. All right, can everyone see that in full screen?
No,
Okay,
unless it looks like it's loading.
duplicate display settings.
Uh.
We'll go back.
Duplicates, display settings.
Duplicate slideshow.
How about now?
Yep, full screen.
All right, thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Today, Zach and I will be discussing safety performance measures for 2025. Excuse me. This is an information only. There's no action required at this time. So all of our performance measures that we review at SHPC fall under Transportation Performance Management, which is a program that uses system information to guide investment and policy decisions with the goal of achieving national performance measures. So for the type of performance measures that we do review here, FAST Act requires state DOTs to measure and report performance in the areas of safety, pavement and bridge, system performance and congestion, freight movement and congestion mitigation, air quality, also known as CMAQ. Some, such as safety, which we'll be discussing today, are reviewed and adopted. Oh, yep.
I don't know if Cam has the ability to let people.
He should.
All right, so some as safety that we're discussing today are adopted annually. Others as pavement and bridge are every 4 years. All right, so when we're talking about safety performance measures, these are the 5 federally required measures that we need to review and adopt. Number and rate of fatalities, number and rate of serious injuries, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries. I won't go into much detail about this because Zach will be doing a deeper dive into this in the upcoming slides. So the way this process works is the state DOTs set the performance measures. Then the NPOs have 3 options. They can adopt the state performance targets, they can adopt regional performance targets, or a combination of the 2. The third option is one that SHPC has utilized over the last couple of years and will utilize for this upcoming year. So for 2025, SHPC recommends adopting regional targets for all of the safety measures except for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. For that measure, we are recommending adopting the state target. And with that, I will turn it over to Zach. You want to take this?
Okay. So for this, typically we get to go over it every year, so I try to add some information to make it a little bit more interesting for everybody. So how did we do last year? Let me see if I can hide this. Go away. Okay, so we last year in the SNHPC, I'm sorry, 2023 in the, which is still last year. Wow. Okay. We had 25 fatalities and 102 serious injuries. And just quick definition for people who are either new or forgotten. This is what qualifies as a serious injury. I'm not going to read them aloud because they're pretty grisly, some of them, but this is not the airbag went off and broke my nose. These are life-changing, life-altering, therapy-inducing injuries. So we had, those 25 fatalities, which cost about $47 million to the region, and the 104 serious injuries, which cost $121 million. And if you're doing the math there, that's about a little less than 2 million per fatality, and a little more than 1 million per serious injury. And the reason I said cost of the region is because that's actually paid by society. That's not paid by the person who's actually in the crash. In New Hampshire, the maximum bodily liability for insurance is $50,000. $50,000 doesn't go very far when somebody's paralyzed and in the hospital. So that actually ends up being bared by the rest of us. Here we can see that, about a quarter of fatalities were motorcycles and 16% were pedestrians. And you would expect that because you tend to see more pedestrians and motorcycles just because you're not protected like you are in a vehicle. But that's just 1 year. Oh, I'm sorry, start with this. And of those, about 20% of fatalities happened on limited access expressway. So that means 80% of fatalities happened on roads that we theoretically have some kind of say over. You know, it's not the interstate, this is things that we actually program projects for. And it was 15% on highways for serious injuries. Looking at 3 years, you know, to try to get a better number here, we had 75 fatalities over the last 3 years and 337 serious injuries. And again, you can see that motorcycles and pedestrians are overrepresented in the number of fatalities. And vehicles are overrepresented in motor vehicles are overrepresented in the serious injuries. Again, if you're in a crash, you're more likely to survive if you're in a vehicle.
And this is just in the SNHPC
This is just in the SNHPC region. And remember, that's it's about 2 million per fatality there. This is just looking at Manchester itself. And here we can see it looks quite different, and that pedestrians make up a much larger portion of the of the fatalities. You know, they account for a third, and motorcycles account for a third. And again, so 27 fatalities in Manchester, 151 serious injuries.
Happen to know what the percentage of vehicles and motorcycles?
On how many are there out there, I don't. But that might be, that's something that theoretically, you know, could get it from the DMV.
Kind of, but I don't know if it counts because everybody comes from other places to drive.
There's that too. It's, you know, how many of these fatalities are people, you know, commuting up to Laconia or something. So not in the SNHPC region. So I'm sorry, in the SNHPC region, but not Manchester. There were 48 fatalities and 186 serious injuries. And you can see the breakdown there, that they're much more likely to be motorized. That is, somebody in a car or on a motorcycle, as opposed to what we call, or what Federal Highways calls, a vulnerable road user. That's somebody who's not, you know, not motorized, walking, biking, in a stroller or whatever. And when we look at Manchester again, just highlighting that a third of fatalities are pedestrians. Digging into that a little bit, for reasons I'm not going to go into, we don't have good Manchester crash data for serious injuries. It has to do with how they report to the state and things are lost. It doesn't really matter. But as a kind of a side project, I reached out to the Manchester Police Department and said, hey, can we track down these serious injuries that were either pedestrian or bicyclists? And we were able to locate all those crashes. So here is just showing vulnerable roadway user crashes per census tract. And this is excluding, you know, limited access expressway, because that's a different problem. You know, somebody's changing a tire and gets hit. A construction worker is working and gets hit. That's a problem obviously we want to avoid, but that's a different problem than, you know, somebody crossing the street. Here is what the heat map looks like, and you can definitely see that it's right there in the center of downtown Manchester. And for those familiar with our equity area, the VRU fatal and serious injury crash rate per capita is 8 times higher in the SNHPC equity area than it is in the rest of the region. And the VR rate for per capita for Manchester is twice as high as that of Nashua. So the only other city of similar size in New Hampshire has a rate half as high. How are we doing in general? Well, not very good. You can see the blue line there is the 5-year average fatalities for the region, and the red is the United States. And those are both indexed at the 5-year value for 2011. You can see that both of us kind of hit a low in 2014, and since, you know, our rate has gone up 42% and the national rate has gone up 22%. Well, what's going on there? Well, part of it is just the fact that driving is really dangerous. It's probably the most dangerous thing any of us do any day that we don't think about. 1.3 million people are killed in traffic crashes annually, and 122 million are injured. Traffic crashes worldwide, or traffic crash fatalities worldwide, are the 8th leading cause of death. So we can see this if we look at occupation. This is the 2022 U.S. civilian occupational fatality rate per 100,000 workers. And at the top, back. the top there, you can see there's tree trimmers and logging workers. Those are by far the most dangerous jobs. But then you go down there, pretty soon we can see that heavy and tractor trailer truck drivers there are highlighted, and then we have police and sheriff patrol officers. You can see that it's much more deadly to be a truck driver than it is to be a police officer, which we think of as being a dangerous job. It's also interesting to note that just underneath there on police officer is refuge and recyclable materials collectors. You know, it's a little social commentary, which those two occupations see very different pay and pension benefits, but are, you know, roughly equal in risk. In general, in 2022, motor vehicle occupations had a fatality rate 57% higher than police and sheriff patrol officers. And remember, keep in mind that some of those fatalities for police officers are going to be traffic related. Showed a version of this last year. It's hiding it. So under that, it says road fatalities per 100,000 residents. I showed a version of this, the graph on the left, last year, showing how, you know, the U.S. has many more crash fatalities than other countries. Here I've called out Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom because there are other Anglophone countries. And you can see not only have they improved their crashes over time, or their crash fatality rate over time, we have started higher and regressed. And on the graph on the right are 3 countries that used to have much higher crash rates than us. You know, South Korea in the 90s had a rate that was twice the US, and now it's you know, a third over that 30-year period. But this kind of a pet peeve. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Do you know what happened in 2014 that caused our decrease to plateau and then start raising again?
The plateau
Space enough to know what that caused.
Part of that is that the recession happened and people weren't driving as much, and therefore they weren't crashing. Some of that effects are from that. And why are things going back up? Well, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And there's actually a lot of different reasons, and some of them contradict each other and go different ways. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them. So here's deaths in New Hampshire per 100,000. See the blue line there, or the red line there is the vehicle deaths, and the black line is firearms. So about as many people are killed by firearms in New Hampshire as they are by cars. You can see that for some reason influenza and pneumonia is way down, but and then there towards the bottom is drowning. So, you know, we worry a lot about drowning, but it doesn't actually kill that many people. So how much does alcohol have to do with this? This is nationwide alcohol-related fatalities going from 1982 up to the present. And you can see that in 1982, when they started tracking this, about 50% of all fatalities, a person was above the alcohol limit of 0.8. So fatality used to be that half the people that crashed and died were drunk. Now it's been down to 30%, and it's kind of been around there for the last 20 years. Let's look at Manchester. Let's look at New Hampshire specific. This is New Hampshire fatality rates for 2021. Now that was kind of a weird year because we were still in the pandemic and we were seeing a lot of really dangerous behavior. So this might not be a great representative of it, but there we can see that about a third of all fatalities involve somebody over the limit, and a quarter involve somebody with twice the rate, or twice the limit. So had a blood alcohol level of 0.15 or higher. How much does it have to do with distraction? We all talk about, if you talk to any safety person, they'll talk about people being distracted. We don't have a lot of great data on that. The best I can find is the National Occupant Protection Use Survey, which is essentially they go out and they watch people during daylight hours to see if they're using their phone or not. And so this is the percentage of drivers observed using electronic devices during daylight hours because they can't see you in your car at night. The blue line there is talking on a cell phone with no headset. So you can see that's actually down a lot. And creeping up there is manipulating a handheld device. And that's starting to creep up, but it's still not a huge percent. how much it has to do with enforcement. Here's the change in the number of traffic stop volume in a couple of major cities. Looking there in 2019, and then it plummets in 2020 and stays down at that level. The traffic stops, as far as we can tell, they are way down. So bad behavior is way up. And I'm sure you've seen more people speeding, running red lights, all that sort of thing. Because they know they're not going to get a ticket. There's also the very American problem that our cars are just more dangerous than other countries. It was actually recently covered in The Economist. I don't know if anybody reads that magazine. It was the front page, as it were. The fatality rate is 7 times higher when colliding with a heavy pickup truck compared to a compact car. As the weight increases, so does the risk of killing others in the other car. Even after controlling for the curb weight of one's own car, getting hit by an additional 100,000 pounds of steel and aluminum, roughly the difference between a Toyota Camry and a Ford Explorer, boosts the likelihood of death by 66%. And the cars we're putting on the road are not a lot smaller cars. Here's all the cars that are produced in the US in a particular year. And this is as a percentage of all the fleet that goes out. And you can see that it used to be 75% car, 25% truck back in the 70s when they started tracking this. And truck here also was SUV and vans, anything without a car body. And now you can see there was all trucks was really creeping up there. And then during remember the gas crisis right before the financial crisis, you can see that it started to go down again. And the last couple of years, we're now producing majority trucks in this country. And go back and watch a movie from like the 70s. And just, it's all cars. It's all giant, couch on wheel cars. And our cars are getting bigger. Here's an F-150 produced in the 1970s and one compared to the current model. You can see how much bigger it is, obviously. It's not it doesn't give you any more clearance, but the front end is also much higher. And that's gotten to the point now that I've actually found memes about the rising height of car hoods. And this makes a big difference because it affects whether a pedestrian will live or not when they get killed. Vehicles with tall and sloped, and medium height and blunt front ends were associated with significant increases of 43%, 45%, and 25% in pedestrian fatality risks compared to those with low or sloped fronts. And the reason for that is if you're a pedestrian and you get hit by a car, you get struck in the legs and you fall on the hood. If you're a pedestrian and you get struck by a truck, you get struck either in the abdomen or possibly your head, depending on how short you are, and you get dragged underneath. A 4-inch increase in the front end of a height is associated with a 22% increase in pedestrian fatalities. So every 4 inches goes up by 20%. And that's why the new post USPS truck looks like this, which objectively is a weird looking vehicle. I think we can all agree on that. It's the next generation delivery vehicle.
But it's electric, right?
It is this one. This one, it happens to be electric.
So it's a motor, so there's no need to have a place for a motor.
Correct. Yeah. So that's one. Yeah. So they don't need to have the motor there, and that's one of the reasons it looks like this. It's so if you're out driving around and you hit a kid, larger survival rate. And clearly this is not aerodynamic, but if you're not working in rural Montana, if you're going from house to house, stopping every mailbox, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah. And this is just one vehicle. So if you do live if you're a rural carrier, you're not going to be driving this. You're going to be driving this around the streets of Manchester.
Not in the snow. There's like no clearance.
There's no clear. There was not a lot of clearance. So you gotta. We'll have to. Guys, DPW has to get out there
Driving
first.
it in the warm weather months of Manchester.
This has a number of advantages over the old model, which is from the 80s. It has air conditioning for one thing. And also you can see it has a side door there, so the person can access the worker can access stuff from the curb as opposed to standing on the back of the truck and being, possibly hit. Although there is a word that this particular contract will be revoked under the new administration. What's another reason our rate is so much higher? Well, I'm actually going to say it's because we don't take transit, and that might be a little strange to think about. But here's an example of U.S. fatality rate by mode, and that's deaths per 1 million passenger mile. That's one person moved 1 mile. Here's the passenger rate. So it's 0.48 for a passenger vehicle. It's 0.01 for a bus. You are around 50 times more likely to die in an automobile than you are riding the bus. And you can see, when time you get out the airplane, it's basically, it's nothing. It's not even comparable. Keep in mind that this is only scheduled flights. So if you're out there in your small little thing flying around, your rate's probably much higher. Read this quote from a professor at UC Denver. Yeah. The overall research suggests that on average, a 1% rise in transit mode share equates to a nearly 3% drop in traffic deaths by per population. Transit is about 20 times safer in terms of fatalities and severe injuries than driving. Yet for whatever reason, we never sell transit as a safety feature. And that's true. I've never heard that. Well, is it because we have so many cars? This is America. We love cars. If we're James, we have 20 cars in our driveway right now. So this is cars per 100 person by country. And over here on the left, far left, you can see the US. And then about 80 cars per 100 person, which is, the highest. But Italy's at 70 cars per person. So is Australia. A lot of these other countries have lots of cars. These are countries that like cars. Japan and Germany, like cars. They are not anti-car countries. They wouldn't have an economy if there weren't cars. So they have them. And, the countries that we think of having no cars, that's really not true because, wealthy countries with a reputation of widespread cycling and few cars, such as the Netherlands, still have many more cars than most countries do. There are 12 times, there are more cars in the Netherlands than in Nigeria, despite Nigeria being 12 times the size of the Netherlands. So the Netherlands, which we all think of everybody biking and taking everything by canal, they still have, 60 cars per 100. They still got a lot of cars. The main difference is we drive way more. Here is the vehicle miles traveled per capita for the US compared to Australia, the Netherlands, Great Britain, Japan, Sweden, and I believe the Czech Republic. And you can see there that Australians drove 30% less in 2019, 37% less in 2019 than the US. And Australia has a population density less than 1/10 of the United States. So they're less dense and they drove less. So they're more rural and they drive less. Well, if you actually know something about the geography of Australia, you could say, well, Zach, that's true, but everybody in Australia actually lives on the coast. And these, right along the coast because the center is arid and nobody lives there. And that's true. And this is when we think of big open places, this is near my uncle's family farm in central Washington, where he lives 5 miles from his nearest neighbor. And so yes, the U.S. does look like this. This is what the U.S. looks like. But that's not where the U.S. people live. More than twice as many people live in the black as in the gray. We don't live out in central Washington as wheat farmers. We live in these big metro areas. In particular, this is the Northeast Megalopolis, the Acela corridor, the Boswash corridor. It's got a bunch of different names, but it's from Washington up to Boston. And it's got almost 50 million people live in that black area. If it was a state, it'd be the largest state in the union by far. And there we are, right at the top of it. Now, I was looking at this, and I'm not the first person to think about this, but it reminds me of what is the Taiheiyo Belt in Japan, which is basically a stretch of Japan from Tokyo out past Hiroshima. that's basically where everybody in Japan lives. It's highly densely populated. It's that along that coast there and then the inner sea. And a lot of people have noticed that it's basically the same size as the Boswash corridor. These two maps are the same extent. You can see it's basically the same length, just kind of twisted a little bit. And happens to Boston to Washington is 520 miles, and Tokyo to Hiroshima is 520 miles. So they're very similar. So what does their transportation system look like? By travel time, Boston to Washington, fastest you can go is about according to Google Maps, it's about 7 hours and 20 minutes. And that's, you go in the middle of the night, no traffic, you don't stop, there's no construction.
That is not
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, that's best case.
Was how fast could you possibly?
Yeah. This is best case scenario ever. But travel time for that distance by train is 7 hours, and that's because you can take the Cella line, which is the closest thing we have to a high-speed train in this country. It actually only gets up to high speeds for a section, I think, between Philadelphia and New York or whatever, where it can act, where the line is actually straight enough that it can get speed. From Tokyo to Hiroshima, travel time by car, best case scenarios, 9 hours and 46 minutes. Travel time by train, 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so much faster. They have a transportation system that doesn't only prioritize vehicles. They have a great train system. Well, what's the results of that for their fatalities? American traffic fatalities in 2023 were about 41,000. That's 12.2 deaths per 100,000. Japan, 2,678.
Wow.
With 2.2 deaths per 100,000.
Wow.
They have a very different transportation system in a very similar geography. It produces very different results. Okay, now we're going to get to the actual system performance measures. And we have a kind of a drastic change this year. And I'll let Dave explain this.
Yeah, so we included this slide here to show how the goal of reducing and eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on roadways is shared nationwide through multiple programs. One of them is Safe Streets for All, or SS4A. This is a program that SNHPC is working collaboratively with other MPOs. And one of the components of the action plan is an official public commitment, in this case by an MPO, which is highlighted there, of including a goal of showing a reduction and an ultimate goal of eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries. So this graph here to the left shows the SNHPC goal of having fatalities and serious injuries by 2035 with a goal of elimination by 2050.
So
The 2035 being a 50% reduction.
correct.
Yes.
From the 2023 5-year average. And this is different from what we've done before, because previously the advice from federal highways has always been, don't be aspirational. We're now part of a program where they say be aspirational. So we're going to be aspirational. And this is a measure that all the NTOs in the state are going to be doing. So here we have the 5-year, we have the number of fatalities. It's the 5-year average. You can see the red there is the dot is what we actually had, and the X is the target. So you see that, we were meeting it there for around 2021, and then it started rising. And we'll see if it continues to rise or if that's just a blip. But regardless, we have to set our own target. And so you can see there's our target following that 2020-35 schedule of 2.4. And that's the state's target above that, just for reference. Fairly similar for the fatality rate. Again, the red is what we actually got. The X is the target. And you can see that for a while there, our target was much higher. And that's because we were adopting the state target. And then in 2022, we said, hey, we can see that we're consistently below the state. Let's set a different target. And then we did. You can see that it is projecting up. So we'll see if we still do better than the state. We don't know, but there's the state target and there is our target following the 2020 the 2035 schedule. Here's serious injuries, actually looking pretty good. We're flat at least. Yeah. Targets seem to be pretty close. And again, then we're just a little bit projected above our target for 2025. And you can see the states has gone up. Here's serious injury rate. Again, looks very similar. And we have there the state target, which is higher, and then ours, which is lower. And for the last one, projected number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. We are going to go with the states. And the reason for this is the state's target is more aggressive than what we would adopt under a 2035 timeline, having that by 2035. So we didn't say, well, we don't want to be, above the state. We want if the state is going below her. So for the state, we're actually going to adopt the state target. And you can see that the target moves around a lot there, but we've actually been kind of flat. Yeah.
Thank you, Zach. All right, so here we have a slide kind of summarizing what Zach has been talking about. This is for the 2025 state level safety performance targets. We have our safety measures here, which Zach has gone over. We have our 5-year rolling averages for 2018 and 2019. And here in the middle, we have our trends. The recent trend is which way the data is going. Green with the downward arrow is the way we want it to go. It's decreasing. The red with the upward arrow is going in the opposite way. As we can see for the state, number and rate of fatalities has gone down along with the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. But we do see an increase in the number and rate for the serious injuries. Over to the far right, we have the state targets. These are expressed as decimals since they are averages. And here we have a similar table. This is showing the SNHPC region. We have our measures. We have our 5-year rolling averages that we saw on the last slide. You can see here that for the safety measures in the SHPs, we have seen an increase in almost all of the measures, with the exception being non-motorized non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, which remain flat. To the right of the trends are the state targets once again, and to the right of that are the SNHPC recommended targets and actions. We are recommending adopting we are recommending adopting a SNHPC target for all of the safety measures except for the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, which we're recommending, which we say would support the state target. I should point out that the number outside of the parentheses for the number of fatalities and serious injuries, the 116 here, is the target. This 20.4 and the 96.1 that's inside the parentheses, that is our regional share. And here is our track record over the last 5 years, as Zach showed with some of those previous charts. So Zach does an amazing job with the data analysis, and you can see that our targets and the actual numbers do line up fairly nicely. And you can see through the absolute and the relative difference that we had a change once we started adopting our own targets in 2022. And here is a summary slide bringing this all together. So for the recommended actions for today, we recommend that SNHPC they adopt the SNHPC targets for all of the safety performance measures, except for the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, which we support the state target for. And that's our presentation. We can open the floor to any questions.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Stop
Stop
sharing.
sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Will that be on the website?
Yeah, yeah. But whenever Linda gets it up, yeah, it'll be the slides. Whenever Adam puts it up, apparently.
Plus, we record the whole thing and it'll get on our YouTube. So that'll also be available.
Oh, my son loves watching me do these on YouTube. Oh yeah, he's one of the subscribers. Usually to make fun of me. But he does watch every one. He was excited when I told him last night that we'd be doing one today.
Really good.
As there's no formal meeting today, is the idea that that would come up again next month for
Correct.
recommendation
Yeah.
for adoption?
And so we just always want to get the the numbers out there. So TAC and MPO has a chance to see them before they actually have to take action on them.
Do we vote on them in December or January?
January.
Well, and if there's any concerns or
I know,
other,
I'm still thinking about it. It's like a lot to take in. Great.
yeah, it is a lot.
Yeah, I actually took a bunch out because I was like, yeah, that's probably too much.
And then two things, it's like that whole part is I don't mind having lower numbers, but what does that mean? So when you say, oh, we have to be aggressive when it's zero, well, that makes my little spidey sense go up. And like, I don't want this kind of control. I want something bad to happen to the people who are stupid enough to go 200 miles an hour and pass people on the highway like that. And how do you use the whip enough to get them under control without making everybody else have to suffer the consequences?
Yeah, there's that, and there's also the fact that like we have to be realistic about what our actual impact is. In the grand scheme of New Hampshire's transportation infrastructure, the $10 million that we allocate every 2 years is not going to.
So, and that can only be used on roads, like, I feel like we need to support enforcement more, which isn't exactly pavement.
No.
Like the part with no tickets, people go crazy because they know there's no one gonna stop them.
Yeah.
So if there's no one to stop them because there's not enough support for the people that would be using to stop them. Or is that the part where you get more cameras to?
Yeah, the solution that they use in other countries is they have automated enforcement.
Okay, I can look for that.
Yeah, which is currently illegal in New Hampshire. So if you wanted to get that changed, there's an obvious obstacle to that, and that is happening in other places in the country. Nate mentions all the time in Canada, they're everywhere, and he drives more cautiously
In about 10 days.
Yeah.
You're gonna be driving the speed limit.
Driving.
Probably knows where every single one is
Drive
located.
north to Montreal and then across to Toronto where my in-laws live, and there's 500 miles or so between, on that trip, and I will pass through dozens of automated speed enforcement and red light cameras. And when you're in Toronto and every suburb around Toronto, they are ubiquitous. Every intersection seems to have because they make money. That's part of the reason is they're highly profitable to install. So but they do change driver behavior. I'm not somebody who runs red lights or has a very heavy lead foot or anything, but I start watching the countdown timer on the other approach to see when that light's going to turn yellow, because a lot of these red light cameras are at intersections that are 45 mile an hour zone type intersections in the United States. So you have a point of no return when you're going through the intersection, and you kind of have to anticipate that for a red light camera. But it only, if you are in the intersection, the red light camera doesn't go off. So if your first axle is across the stop bar and you have entered the intersection at the point that it turns red, you don't get a ticket, theoretically. It's only if your first axle crosses the stop bar after the red light has come on that you get the ticket. But if any portion of your vehicle has entered the intersection at the point the yellow goes to red, you can continue that movement without a ticket. At least that's how it works in Canada, but they are all over the place now in Canada.
They have them in New York too, and over the years I've had to drive in Manhattan for various reasons for my other employment. And the dramatic change in driver behavior between before and after video monitoring is incredible. Like, I really grimaced every time I would go down the Eastern Parkway in Manhattan prior to the cameras. And then afterwards, everybody drove a reasonable speed because there was no ability to jockey without getting a speeding ticket. And so people weren't cutting each other off anymore. It just totally changed the way people drove.
I took a road trip with our kids in April of last year and drove. Part of the trip was from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Williamsburg, Virginia. And driving through rural Virginia, there were automated speed enforcement traps everywhere. And they were in places with no transition zone. Like these, 55-mile-an-hour arterial roadways, not interstate, but like, two or 4 lane arterial roadways that go into a school zone where it goes to 30 with no transition zone. So you're going from 55 to 30. And that's where they set, because now all of a sudden you're in a school zone, even though you're, driving through this very rural, higher speed arterial road. And it's at that point, they give you warning that it's coming up, but it's at that point where you're going from 55 to 30 where they have the speed cameras set up. They must be highly profitable.
Well, yeah, that's nice that the southern people drive, we used to drive from Boston to Florida, all those states that have everybody looking for the torque, they look for the license plate, if you were the foreign license plate, so they put that in the right place. If you live there, you know. If you don't live there, you have money on the wheel.
But that's a southern state. I mean, Virginia, it's south of the Mason-Dixon line. So,
Automated traps.
and they have embraced automated enforcement in a pretty big way.
Well, I think also what this presentation showed is also the change in the type of cars. When we were in Germany recently, and I'm sure, Andrew was in Europe as well. What we noticed, because I actually drove for about a week, and the cars are very different. Everything is smaller, and a lot of people are using electric cars. Plus, there's not those huge parking lots everywhere, so you have to fit your car in tiny places. So the cars are just smaller. Everything is smaller, and so like that whole picture of the truck, I come from Newmarket every day, and just like a lot of the staff here come from pretty far, and some of the vehicles passing me are just huge. They're huge. Anyway, it is really interesting.
So, I will say with the presentation, it looks like a lot of serious injuries and fatalities came from a lot of social factors, so not necessarily road design or any sort of city design. It was IBACs. It was, so they mentioned a lot larger vehicles. So with your projections and with your targets being low, and one of them said down to 0 in 2035. There's so many other factors that, at least to my understanding, you guys don't necessarily have control of. So how are you going to mitigate those factors as well?
Education, I guess, is the only thing, you can, but there's always the argument that, well, yeah, a lot of these car crashes are people that are over the limit. Well, a lot of places in this country and this area, if you want to go have a couple drinks, you have to drive there. Whereas if you were in a different country, you could walk down to the pub in the town, or you could take a bus or something like that. You want to go get smashed, unless somebody else takes you, that's your only option. And then again, if you were in a smaller car, when you hit that, hit the other person where you're drunk driving, it's less likely that you're going to kill them. So it's all,
We just recently submitted an RSA request for a site in Manchester, and it's a really sharp, almost 90-degree like through curve. And the fatal that happened did have an alcohol component to it. And our thought process was, would that have still happened even if they were under the influence, if the roadway design was more appropriate for the speeds that people are traveling, or how could we design our roadways to take away that, that geometric part of the crash, because a lot of it is the way our roadways are designed. Like we have so much, like we've always designed for, cars. And so there's so much space and so much opportunity to go fast that until we start kind of tweaking the way we look at our roadway design, we're never going to even reduce the social factors. That's my opinion. I think a lot of it, so I had the opportunity to participate in an NCHRP panel that was looking at the Green Book design vehicles. And so the research group did a lot of public outreach, or a lot of outreach to the manufacturers to understand what size vehicles are being sold, what's being bought, and they compiled this huge list. And their recommendation to AASHTO for the Green Book was to make a second passenger vehicle that's larger than the one that's in the Green Book as it exists now. So we're almost saying instead of
Bigger.
yes, and it was pretty frustrating from my point of view because now we're going to be making our roads bigger and wider. And yes, the Green Book is supposed to be talking more. The next Green Book is going to talk more about context and whatnot. But for that young engineer that doesn't understand how to apply context, they're going to be looking at this saying, oh, well, I'm going to design, my roadway for this because there's this condition, or I'm going to be making my parking lot that much bigger because now these vehicles are bigger. And it was pretty frustrating, I think, because I think that's not helping the safety component of any of this. But
Well, one option is, we heard that transit's safer, and I never thought of that as, really promoting transit, and since so many crashes are in Manchester, maybe we can promote, don't drive drunk, take the bus.
Bus doesn't really run at that time.
Yeah, that's the main.
that's the limitation is the bus, like in my neighborhood, I've looked at taking the bus into the city to work. And it comes every hour like that. There's no way I could make that work.
So it's a
to
whole,
kids that-
so because you create a whole separate bus company, completely different from you have a whole. You have the party bus company. The government party bus company.
You have
The government
party bus. You have the trolley. You have the trolley. Just have,
Trolley, yes.
just you can start doing wedding.
That's a fun ride.
There's Lyft and Uber that are the party bus.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, you're either, somebody's driving, you're either, somebody is being the designated driver or you're paying them
Yeah.
to come pick you up.
Worry about the slogan, you drive, you die, you drive, you survive.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's good advertisement.
So at any point, will you take, like, is there a public outreach component of this, the performance measures? Because like the city has consistently got pushback on, looking at bike opportunities, bike facilities. And the safety, the society costs of the crashes, like all of that, I feel like would educate our BMA on what it means to continue to design our roadways the way we have been. And so I can't speak as eloquently to that, but I feel like it would be an opportunity to educate them. Like, I think the society costs just alone, I think would maybe make them realize. So I didn't know if there was any plan to go out to communities and present some of this and let people see what we're trying to achieve, like why we ask for money to do these different types of treatments. It's to hit these targets, to improve safety.
Historically, no, but I don't see any reason why
We
there
could
couldn't.
definitely do outreach presentations to municipalities
Okay.
related to transportation safety. Yeah, I mean, it's something we can talk about. I think there might be merit to doing that.
Yeah.
Because this is great. I mean,
Yeah.
what Zach has put together here.
Wait, are you saying the mayor isn't watching all my presentations? What is, I thought he was, he first person to click and watch that, but yeah.
Well, I think we could get, our team here to do a shorter version that's Manchester centric, or whoever the community is that is saying, hey, we'd love to show this to our, whatever it is. And we could do a video and they could just see it at their convenience because, like today, we have this beautiful presentation. We have, a dozen folks here and online, and it's really worthy of a lot of viewing. And so, yeah, maybe we can work on that.
Yeah, I think that would, especially since so much, especially the VRU portion of the crashes happened in Manchester, and that seems to be the hardest push for us in our.
Can we take this as a request then, Maggie?
No, you can. Let me discuss with the rest of the staff to make sure it makes sense. And then I will follow up.
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Looking at the time, I want to make sure Ben has enough time for his presentation.
I just want to mention one thing quickly, and I wouldn't call it a social factor, but it's a behavioral factor. I don't think Zach mentioned it. Year by year, it varies, but in any given year, either 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 people who die on New Hampshire roads are unrestrained. They're not wearing their seatbelts.
Uh,
And because we don't have a primary seatbelt law and leave that to the legislature to figure out. But the result of that practically is that based on that seatbelt usage survey that goes on, we are usually battling one of the Dakotas for last place in terms of voluntary seatbelt usage. So our seatbelt usage is low, and the number of the proportion of people who are in fatal crashes on New Hampshire roads that are dying are unrestrained for that, in part due to that dynamic.
Yes, I've mentioned that in previous previous years, looked at, what percentage are not wearing a seatbelt, what percentage of motorcyclists aren't wearing a helmet. It's not quite as, it's really evident for seatbelt use. It's a little less evident for motorcycle, just because a motorcycle in general is dangerous.
So vulnerable.
And so, so you could have your helmet on, it doesn't matter, as opposed to, a car where you get ejected. But
All right.
I don't want to
Well, thank you.
take up any more of
All
Ben's
right,
time.
Ben. Why don't you bring it up and we'll start.
Just want to make one note while Ben setting up this slide deck. Everything Zach just presented will ultimately be incorporated into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update. There'll be a system performance report, which talks about historic performance and tries to link those performance targets, such as safety measures that we heard about today, with projects within the Transportation Improvement Plan and the ultimate project list that will be incorporated into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So this information that was presented by Dave and Zach should inform decision-making about how to choose the right projects to go into the Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
All right, well, thank you for that advertisement. And so I'm going to start us off and then Ben will continue. Have you shared it yet or?
Yeah, can everybody see this full screen online? Yep.
Great,
Sweet.
thanks, Cam. So this is some really wonderful work that we've been working on for quite a while. Victory Women of Vision in Manchester. We'll talk more about them, but really what this is all about is building relationships. And you'll see how, as the title says, how bus doors open the path towards independence for these elders. This project background, so since our work starting in 2016 on creating age-friendly communities started, we've been building relationships with so many folks, including and especially the New Hampshire Alliance for Healthy Aging. We already have a relationship with Transport New Hampshire, New Hampshire Legal Assistance, and of course the RCC8 is that's sort of Bend, what he's under on this one, and Victory Women of Vision. But the project started back around, I'm gonna say 2023. There was funding for a larger sort of equity kind of project through New Hampshire Alliance for Healthy Aging. But as we were building partnerships and the scope and the funding, all of a sudden we lost resources. So we had to regroup and redefine. And so what we did is create this pilot program with Victory Women, because what happened with them basically is they had a driver and a van, and that driver said, sorry, I'm retiring. And then they were like nowhere. They have elders that come weekly who no longer had a way to get there, and they had to beg their family for rides. So Victory Women of Vision is a nonprofit group. They encourage, empower, and nurture immigrant and refugee families to thrive by embracing their cultural heritage as they build their new lives. And you can see here, they're just a fun group of elders. Mary is on the right in the front. She's their executive director. And there's multiple languages being spoken here. So let's talk about, I think the languages next. So this is a Zach slide, actually, just to give you an idea on the percentages of what we're seeing, national and state percentages of population that are foreign born. And you can see where we are compared to some of the states and the United States in the country. And we're right, where's my mouse? Right here. I think that's up just between 6 and 7%. But to give you an idea of where they are as far as, and here we are again, bottom one. But many of our foreign-born are from Europe, but notice where we are also high in percentage is Africa. So when we were working with Victory Women of Vision, this is where a lot of those elders are coming from. And this was just partial from who was involved from the beginning of the elders, and that has since grown. But you can see, interestingly enough, all these countries within Africa, but also we have several others. So starting in 2023, as part of that pilot program with the Alliance for Healthy Aging and the other agencies, we had a date with Victory Women of Vision. It was kind of a workshop-esque kind of time where we gathered. There were 4 different interpreters in a relatively small space with probably about 20 elders and family members. And what we asked through their interpreters was, what is working well in your community as it relates to aging? What is not working well? How can New Hampshire better serve and support its aging population? What do you need to continue living in your home as you get older? And what can we do to reduce isolation for older adults in New Hampshire? For those of you who've been working with sort of that age-friendly work throughout, whether it's this area or anywhere really in New Hampshire, isolation is a killer, an actual killer for older adults. So here's that, most of the groups, I had darker hair then already, oh my God. So,
I had longer hair.
And yeah, Ben had much longer hair. Look at that. I don't think, Tracy, you were there that day. So what we heard from out of that day was this group needed an elder project coordinator. They need assistance with healthcare. They need assistance with housing. They have a lot of questions in these areas. And naturally, while we're there, they wanted a lot of assistance with transportation. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, they had lost their driver and their van. And what many of these elders have to do is beg rides off their families. So now I'm going to hand it to Ben.
So what I first thought about when they said they had transportation issues was, why aren't they taking the bus? Because MTA runs a pretty robust fixed route service throughout the city. Well, this is a map of like all the routes they operate in the city. And showing this to me, someone who's kind of a nerd about buses and transit and stuff, this kind of overwhelms me. So imagine showing this to somebody who doesn't speak a lot of English and has only been living in Manchester for only 3 years. And so we looked at this and we thought, how can we take this and personalize it for a lot of these elders and make it easier for them to navigate the bus system to get from their home to the Victory Women of Vision Center? And so we developed these universal maps that sort of take the route and put it in a more visual sense. So relying less on English, which a lot of them aren't necessarily proficient in, and rely more on visuals. So this is about the Green Dash, which is MTA's free downtown shuttle circulator. Most of this was actually made by MTA. We then took it and then added a couple more elements to it to make it more visual. So we added in pictures, a lot of I guess the landmarks of downtown Manchester. So all the mill buildings by the river itself, the Veterans Park, the Market Basket, if you want to call Market Basket a landmark, and then also these visuals at the bottom that indicate that it's free, it's no cost. All are welcome. So if you're mobile, if you're in a wheelchair, if you have a bike, you can use it, and that it runs every 30 minutes. And we also, you actually get to see Tracy makes a couple cameo appearances in this presentation as well. But the MTA has their own tablets on each bus that allows riders to go up and use the Translate app on it. So if they have any questions or they need to like tell the bus driver something, you can actually go up and use that tablet and like quickly like type down what they need to say or get across if they don't necessarily speak good enough English. And so our next step was, how about we all get all of them onto the bus? And so in December of, still last year, we all, myself, Sylvia, Tracy, and a bunch of the women at Vic Women Division all decided to take a tour of the Green Dash. And I just explained what the Green Dash is. Of course, it's free. It runs every 30 minutes, and the ridership has actually been going up. In fiscal year 24, it had a ridership of almost 20,000, which is an 83% increase from that previous year. And this is just a map that shows where it runs throughout downtown Manchester. And actually, I don't know if I could point it out on this map, but the Victor Women Division office is like within a block of this route, within the 1100 Elm Street Tower, this thing right here. And so what we thought was going to be a great, smooth, non-problematic idea, when we finished that, we were like, okay, maybe there's some lessons learned from this, because it was in December in New Hampshire, and a lot of these elders are from like the Congo and Sudan, where you don't necessarily have New Hampshire like weather. It was very cold. And of course, I'm walking around with like a Carhartt jacket, totally unzipped, not caring about the 20-degree weather. But a lot of them really shouldn't have gone out that day. Some of them had like medical conditions where they honestly shouldn't have been walking, not even like a block to a bus stop. Would probably benefit more from like a paratransit service where it comes and picks them up. Elders might be too embarrassed to disclose such physical issues and medical issues. Like I said, the cold weather can be a barrier to many of these people, or many of the elders in the program. But a couple months later, we got some unexpected positive results from this. We were like, so how's this transit program working for you? And they said, well, a lot of us have actually started taking the bus more and learning it ourselves. We've been using it to go to work, go shopping. At least 5 reported in March of this year that they've been utilizing job training programs now. They've also been, one said that they were going to use it to take a second job now. And one quote that one of them said that really stuck with us was, I no longer have to beg my family for rides. And rather than talking about all of this, we actually put together a video where you get to hear them share their experiences with how using transit has changed their lives. And I will, once I find that, pull that up and share it with you guys.
Also verify that our home viewers can see this as it comes up. What's on your screen and what's on the big screen is not the same.
Looks like it's full screen for people at home. Can you guys see it in full screen? Oh, we can't see it in full screen.
Yeah, we have it in full screen. You're gonna want to make sure you can share the
it's because the PowerPoint,
the audio as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do the audio then.
Yeah.
So this was an idea we had over the summer, was to this past summer, to video some of the actual elders and record them in their own language, so they could share, so that they could utilize, Victory Women could utilize this as a tool to show other new people coming into their facility.
Manchester, New Hampshire is one of the largest, so
We can hear that, Ben.
we can't hear it in the room though.
Oh.
Largest and most culturally diverse cities in northern New England. Yeah. Within the city is Victory Women of Vision, an organization which provides a community hub for elderly women and their families who immigrated to New Hampshire from all over the world. While Victory Women of Vision has created a positive and welcoming hub for all participants, for some, getting to their office in downtown Manchester was a challenge, and often elders had to rely on their family members to drive them. In response, a partnership between Victory Women of Vision, the New Hampshire Alliance for Healthy Aging, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, and Manchester Transit Authority was created to help address the elders' transportation needs. This video highlights the success of 3 elders in learning how to ride the bus and gaining their independence.
Kiso na ngai liboso ezali nani nayeba mpona yo moko banda ntango nini yo ofandi na Manchester?
25 ans. Depuis 2020. كويسة والله جيت طبعا جابتني بنتي هنا من السودان.
Et puis depuis combien de temps tu viens à ces groupes de Victor
Je suis arrivée
Women of
ici
Vision?
en 3e mois en 2023. Ça fait, je crois, 5 ans.
Yes, exactly. No, I started with this program while I was working.
أنا شغالة بديت ولما نكون يوم الأربعاء بقوم أجي هنا. أيوة أنا شغالة اليوم الثاني شغالة نفسي شغالة يومين وبعد ذاك بعد الأربعة سنة شهر 11 اللي فات قاموا قالوا لي جو غير مقدمات يعني.
Without any prior notice or any reason explaining to
غير
me,
مقدمات بس قال لي جو.
they just came to me and said, go.
Okay. Okay.
And I said, okay, and I left.
Yeah.
And why did you decide to get involved with Victory Women of Vision?
Parce que à la maison, je ne fais rien. Je reste toujours souvent à la maison avec les enfants, mais les matins comme ça, les enfants sortent à l'école. Je suis seule à la maison. Je m'ennuie. C'est pourquoi je viens passer mon temps ici. Quand je suis ici, les enfants sont à l'école. Après liwa ya mubali nangai, na bandai kuvanda na ndako nazali kosala depression ne marija na yaki komona ngai alobi ce n'est pas bon ya kotikala na ndako yaka usanganaka na baninga. Depuis je termine vers 14h, je rentre à la maison. 14h à 15h, les enfants reviennent à la maison.
I am so happy to be here in this program. And there are beautiful people, and you are a beautiful person. And we've seen all the kindness and care and respect here. We are happy here.
Liboso te basala likambo ya bus. Ndenge nini iyo bandai kuya kusangana ba mama awa ndenge nini bandai kutambola na libanda ya mboka na Manchester yo moko liboso bus batia likanisi ya bus. Lokola nazalaki na mwana na ngai bakoko na ngai mobali na ngai bango nde bazalaki kosunga ngai na transport.
Je venais avec ma fille. Je me déplace souvent avec ma fille. Même aller au store, au market basket, on vient avec la voiture, avec ma fille. Souvent, je sors avec elle. Ou bien elle est mari de ma fille. Mais là, comme je connais, avant, je ne connaissais pas comment on prend les bus. Mais quand je suis venue ici, on m'a dit qu'il y a des bus qui transportent les gens. Et je me suis renseignée. Lelo tobandaki koyawa mokolo mususu bato bayaki awo bayebisi biso makambo ya bis green soki green bus soki nini wana nde bamemaki biso balakisi biso tokendeki na Elm Street quelque part awo balobi ezalaka na bus moko soki bolingi bokende shopping na basket market balakisi biso makambo ya bus nde tokendeki nde naye komona te zoka nde bus pe mutu akoko kende kosala shopping na bus.
Very cold that day.
ezali malili mokolo wana.
بدل البرنامج اللي قلنا تكتيو بقينا نجيب هنا لحد قاموا قالوا لنا ورونا الباص وقالوا لنا تجيب الباص ما تجوا تاني. Ça me fait du bien, je peux aller n'importe où avec le bus. Je peux me promener ici à Manchester. Je sais comment aller et retourner. Même si je vais ailleurs, en Concorde, je vais rentrer à la maison. Je ne vais pas me perdre. Ma fille, là, elle était très contente. Hein. Elle me dit, oh, elle se débute elle. Elle connaît les routes maintenant.
I get on the bus and I start wandering around and looking around me. And I love the city. There are so many places I've never seen in the city. The bus showed me those places. Very comfortable.
En tout cas, ezosala ngai bien. Eza sorte ya kosala neti exercice po balobaka mama kovandaka na ndako te salaka mwa exercice tambolaka donc epesaka ngai esengo nasalaka na uti na ndako na ngai nake na re ya bus nakane na ngai nazeli bus na ngai kompona lere naza na re nayebisaka mwana na ngai oyo asuka Ben aza na Congo nalobi Ben naza na re ya bus nazozela bus nazokende kuna na programme alobi mama ozozwa bus nga alobi nazozwa bus alobi mama okomi komata bus nga alobi ça me fait du bien nazosala exercice nake na bus na retour mwana na ngai Mathilde nde ayaka kozwa ngai na retour na retour kozwa bus te nakobanda koya kozwa yo na retour en tout cas ça me fait du bien nazosala exercice olie navandaka kaka na ndako me nazotambola en tout cas basepelaka mpo nayebisaka bango naza na besoin kaka fulani yaka ozwa ngai otika ngai na Walmart nakende kosomba biloko boye na boye sikoyo naza indépendant na neti samedi nakokende kaka na re ya bis nazeli bisi na ngai nakiti na Elu Street nazwi bisi mosusu nake ata na mall nasombi biloko na ngai nazongi nazwi bisi na ngai naye nake na ndako nakokozwa bisi na ngai nake na Burlington nasali shopping na ngai nake na Marshall nasali shopping na ngai donc nakomi mpenza nayebisaka bango nalobi ale bosala bakomande ya biloko na bino nakokende kosala shopping nasombeli bango tumwa babiloko en tout cas bazosepela balobi mami aza kosanue lisusu te azali vraiment aza bien donc ezosala ngai mpenza ezosala ngai esengo
I can go to shops. I can go buy things by myself. Now I know the bus, where to get on the bus, where it drops me, how to get to places. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I love you.
Interesting enough, when we actually went and did that video, our plan was only to talk to 3 of them, but a lot more were kind of bummed out that they didn't get to talk as well, because everybody wanted to like share the story of just like how much better their lives have been since they've had this newfound independence. And there were some parts cut out of the video where they talked about like issues they had at first, and all the stories they gave about like the issues they had when they first tried it or like the second time trying it, they were always like resolved by like the people at MTA. We're always willing to help them out and make the experience for them easy, so to say. Yeah. There was no cutout part where it was like, I love the bus, but I wish it was better. No, it was nothing like that. They all said that any issue they had was like immediately resolved.
How did they pay for it? Do they get funding for tickets, prize transfers? I don't know.
Not from us, at least. I don't think they did.
Curious to know.
Well, and that's, why don't we go back to the PowerPoint to
I want it
next
down.
steps?
Yeah.
One of the next steps is where we're going from here, and then continuing to develop this relationship, continuing to build on what we've done.
Yeah.
Can everybody see the screen again?
Yep.
Okay,
It'd be
cool.
nice to give them like a pass to try the bus, work with them and.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking to you.
Oh. So I'm like reading your mind and stuff. You are.
Our next steps are to ambush Tracy in her office with new things to do. Which actually is kind of true based on what we're getting to. We've been working with MTA on creating this sort of like bus buddy program. So people can offer their time to train other people on riding the bus. And so those who will be like the travel trainer will get like a 1 month pass for the bus, and those who are being taught will get like a 5-day pass. We also worked with the Red Room and Vision and MTA for MTA's seasonal Hampton Beach route, which they do. Is it twice a month during the summer or once a month? Once a month during the summer. Oh yeah. Yeah. And actually I have some information on that as well. And so yeah, it's $5 round trip to take the bus from Manchester to the beach, going from it's like June to September.
Yeah.
And so what we did was that we decided, okay, we did the Green Dash tour in a New Hampshire winter. Let's actually do something in the summertime now, where maybe it's a little more comfortable. And it was a little more risky, because you're not just taking them like do a loop through the city, you're taking them all the way to Hampton Beach. It has to pick them up from Veterans Park here and go wrong way. And go like 40 miles east for 45 minutes all the way to Hampton Beach, and it just drops them off. And then it comes back in like 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, we had no idea how many people would be involved, and we did a lot of conversation with vision people, their staff, and we made sure they would be to the bus before it left so that everybody could get on the bus. We knew it would be more than the elders, but we didn't know if it would be grandkids. We had no idea who would be coming.
And so luckily the bus drops them off right at this, pavilion or a community center where it has like restrooms. It's right on the beach. So there's like shops and ease of access like down to the beach with the ramp and stairs and everything. And so what we did, since Sylvie and I luckily live out towards the coast, we actually set up a little like oasis base camp for them, where we put out these umbrellas, all these chairs, some like boogie boards and footballs for the grandkids. And when they all showed up, it was amazing. Everyone loved it. There was no issues with it. The only issue was the grandkids were mad that they had to go home. And some of them said that they lived in New Hampshire for decades and they actually had never been to the beach here until that day. It only took them $5 and a ride on the bus to get there, which I live in Dover, and it's way more complicated for me to try and get from Dover to Hampton Beach by a bus. And I would probably just prefer not going to Hampton Beach, because it's Hampton Beach, let's be honest. And so after this trip, they were already talking about taking the next bus in the next month, because this is in July and they would do one more in August. And I was like, okay, sweet, let's do the one in August, because this is a great time and this is a blast. And so with that, I'll end it on a high note and open it up to questions, comments, or grievances if you for some reason have any.
Well, this, like I said in the beginning, it's a pilot program, so we're really excited that they did get funding to continue the Alliance for Healthy Aging to continue this as a pilot program in Nashua. So we're hoping that they'll build on our success in Nashua. And naturally, we're continuing still with our group with Victory Women, like the video that Ben made. And we tried to do the Christmas lights tour so that more people.
Oh, yes, I did. I saw your email.
And but in 3 days, that bus was already filled. I worked with Steve.
That's to the police department.
Yeah, I worked with Steve and the police department, and I didn't realize it's just Facebook where they announced that. So we've been hoping to get involved early this year, and still, we have not been successful. But anyway, we're looking forward to continuing, and so really are building relationships with them, because it's a huge trust issue. It's a huge trust issue. Getting someone on a bus when you don't know the language, and you like some of the elders said, well, my daughter brought me here, or they maybe didn't want to come, or maybe wanted to stay in their country, but their family said, no, we're moving. for whatever the reason is. We don't go into why they're here, just they are here. And so it's been really rewarding, and we're gonna continue working with MTA and seeing if the bus buddy program can get moved. And I'm bringing Adam involved, and then we have an intern that we're going to involve in the bus buddy system. So we're really hoping to help Victory women learn how to become bus buddies, and then more people can use the bus. Maybe those safety numbers will be.
Get them to be.
That's the whole idea. That's the idea, is get them to be a bus buddy.
How many elders are there now total? I don't know.
No idea.
All the same amount.
I'm gonna guess they have, every Wednesday they meet, so there are probably 20 women there. Okay. Every time.
It's around the same.
Thinking of the bus buddy program, it's like we start it and we have like a group of people become bus buddies, and then once they figure it out, they start teaching other group of people. It's like a morally good pyramid scheme, you know, how to think about it. But
You do have to be taught how.
yeah. And a lot of the issues that they were having with, you know, not having rides, even though they were saying it in a different language, it's.
The visual,
Yeah.
I give you a visual, I really like the visual.
Thank
You
you.
don't have to, I like the visual.
Thank you.
I can't speak English, so sometimes
Yeah.
I slur my words, but the visual is really nice.
Yeah,
It's just easy.
And the experiences they have aging in New Hampshire reflects everyone else's, even if they were saying it in a different language. It was like French, Arabic, and one more than I'm forgetting. Swahili. Yeah. And yeah, so this reflects not only the work that we're doing with Women of Vision, but the work that can be done with New Hampshire's aging population as a whole.
Yes, so you're gonna be consultants with Nashua, or let them go and see what.
I
they do
don't know,
different.
we're certainly game to, but they have in Nashua their own mobility manager, so they have some ones not as awesome as our Ben, but pretty good too. So we'll see. Any questions from those on virtually? No? Great, just loving it, right?
I was gonna say, where it seems like a lot of the issues with them in particular, them and a lot of the population, is just knowledge, just knowing things are out there and knowing
Right.
things are available, so. Just, it seems like a lot of them, it was very helpful for that once they figured it out, but just knowing that those services exist is a good portion of the battle, and I feel like that's always the case.
And then, do we give awards to bus drivers? Like, is there a, you know, feel the drivers are kind of like a big part of it. My mother, where she lives, she's 94, she still drives, but she gets around like those people losing their drivers in the first, the drivers are a huge part. They're like a driver's party or something.
We do employee appreciation events, but I mean, it is part of their job and their training, is to know that system inside and out. And help those who ask. I mean, they're constantly getting questions and, you know.
Right, it's just like to make sure that they know that everybody thinks they're awesome.
They have a big group. When they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
All right, well, thank you.
We are at our bewitching hour.
If we didn't actually convene, we don't exactly have to adjourn, right?
We don't.
Right, well, enjoy your holiday, everybody, if we don't see you again virtually or in person, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for a nice meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Holidays.
holidays. Adam and I would love